Hello, everyone. My name is Kirby Crystal. I'm a rising fourth-year business administration student from Carrollton, Georgia, and I use the pronouns he, him, his.
And I'm Carly Bethea, a rising third-year civil engineering student from Raleigh, North Carolina, and I use the pronouns she, her, hers. Kirby and I serve on FASET Cabinet in the new Student in Transition Programs office, and we will be your hosts for Tech Stories tonight.
In the next half hour or so, you will hear a wide variety of stories from 5 different FASET leaders that cover various topics and their personal stories at Tech. We hope that some of these stories will resonate with you and that if you would ever go through something similar, you'd have someone to talk to. We'd like to remind you that these are their own personal journeys, so lessons learned can leave, but stories stay, meaning that the thoughts and ideas that you gain from these stories can go with you, but the specific details of the stories should stay here. At the end of each story, you'll hear a statement, I'm Georgia Tech. This is a campaign by Georgia Tech to help students share, reflect, and celebrate their unique identities and experiences they're bringing to Georgia Tech.
Before we begin, we would like to note that there will be a story involving a student's personal experience with emotional abuse, loss, and being drugged. We know this content may be difficult to hear, especially if you have personal experience or know somebody who does, so feel free to grab a drink of water, use the restroom, or do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself during the second story you hear tonight. Now, we will begin hearing from Grayson Knorr.
Hello, everybody. Oh my gosh, you're all spread out. My name is Grayson Knorr. I am originally from Atlanta, Georgia. I am going to be a second-year chemistry major with a Spanish minor on the pre-health track, and I am here to tell you all my tech story. Growing up, I swore that I would never, ever go to Georgia Tech. It was a school for boys, and it was a school for engineers, and that's it. Students didn't know how to have social lives, and they certainly didn't know how to have fun. That phrase right there was what I believed for so many years about Georgia Tech. I lived maybe 10 minutes down the road, so it was simply the school down the road. Being from Atlanta, all I wanted to do was to get up and out of the city and be as independent as possible. But I guess it was something about the color yellow. Call it a higher power, a gut feeling, whatever it may be to you. But something told me that I had to be at Tech, that Tech was where I was meant to be. So I respectfully declined my ROTC scholarship from Boston University and sent in my deposit for Tech, maybe 2 weeks before the May 1st deadline. I had made a decision about the next 4 years of my life based on a gut feeling. Way to go, Grayson. Going into my FASET session, I was pretty anxious. No one that I was super close with in high school was coming to Tech, so it was pretty much just me on my own, figuring things out. I had some amazing friends in high school where I didn't necessarily need to step out of my comfort zone to meet people or be included. I was that friend that if she didn't make the plans, she certainly was the one to ask what was going on. I was a student that seemed to have it all together. I had my grades, my extracurriculars, my future career path, everything what I wanted for my future. Everything that I had worked so hard for in the last 4 years of high school was a plan that I had seen through to the end until I was handed that diploma. In any and every situation that had come my way, I had had a plan. This, Tech, whole different ballgame. Going into my video call, I was instantly greeted by 2 smiling faces whose passion for Tech literally radiated from head to toe. In our FASET session, we did icebreakers, get to know yous, all the introductory parts of a FASET session. I made my schedule, dealt with Oscar registration for the first time, which all of you have done, got to meet all these amazing people within my group, hopped off the call and shut my laptop. Something told me that this was where I was meant to be. I found my roommate on the Facebook group chat. We color coordinated our dorm decorations. I got my move-in time. All moved in. Some friends of my roommate and I decided to grab food from North Ave Dining Hall, sit on Tech Green, and get to know each other. After a full day of walking around campus and getting to meet all kinds of new people, I got in bed and I knew that this was where I belonged. I didn't have everything figured out, and that was okay. I didn't have all the answers as to how my classes were going to go, how I was going to feel on the first day of class, what my friends would look like, what it even meant to be a college student. I didn't even know why I ended up at Tech. But little did I know that that little group of people that I went to North Ave with would turn out to be some of my best friends here at Tech. That I would be a pre-med student at a predominantly engineering school. That as a pre-med student, there would be so many doors open to me when I clicked on a random link for a medical club. That I would have some of the most amazing mentors in Greek life, and that I would have the social life that I dreamed of in high school. All of this to say, as all of you transition into this next new amazing chapters of your lives, I am living proof that it's okay to not have everything figured out or to have all the answers. And to be really honest with you, I'm still figuring that out. What my future career looks like, the difference that I'm meant to make here at Tech. Part of this next new chapter of your lives is finding and figuring out more of yourself. And that's okay. So, to you and me, here's to being a yellow jacket. I'm okay with not having all the answers. I am Georgia Tech. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that story with us, Grayson. We're so glad that you found your place at Tech, even after being unsure and deciding to come here on a whim.
We want to remind you once again that the following story contains potentially triggering experiences, so feel free to step out if needed. Next, we will hear from Rachel Newberg.
Hey everybody, my name is Rachel Newberg and I am a second-year industrial engineering major with a computer science minor from Cumming, Georgia. Now, all throughout high school, I was someone who always prided myself on my mental health. All of my friends would talk about how they were depressed or had really bad anxiety, and I could just never relate. I was someone who always saw the good in life and was just always happy. But my first year at Georgia Tech certainly brought a challenge that I didn't expect that caused my mental health to slowly decline. And today, I'm going to tell you about that story. So on October 10th, I found out that one of my best friends, Kevin, had tragically passed away. Now, he was my person in high school. He was the person that I would call when something amazing had happened I just want to share, or when I was going through something really hard and just needed a shoulder to cry on, or just wanted someone to hang out with because I was bored. Now, he was born with cerebral palsy, which, kept him from doing a lot of things, but he never let it show. He was always the person to face challenge head on and just to always have the biggest smile on his face. So when I found out that he had passed away, I was absolutely crushed. I spent the first several days after just sitting in my bed crying, not wanting to go to class, not wanting to do anything. And I slowly felt myself start to get a little depressed. Now, the next thing that happened to me is what you hear about happening on a lot of college campuses, especially to girls, and you really never think that it can happen to you. People always tell you, hey, watch your drink, don't let anyone make you a drink without you watching it very carefully to make sure they don't put anything in it. My own mother even warned me of this, and I just brushed her off, being like, I got this, nothing's gonna happen to me, I'm way too smart for that. But at my first real party on campus, I got drugged. And how I kind of figured this out is that I was headed home, and once I got back to my dorm, I started to feel kind of woozy, so I ducked into the first floor lounge of my dorm. I sat down for a minute, and all of a sudden, I couldn't really talk, I couldn't really move, I couldn't really speak, I couldn't really keep my eyes open, and at some point, I lost consciousness. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, that night is still a little fuzzy to me, but just the fact knowing that someone wanted to do something to me that night, whether I wanted it or not, was incredibly terrifying. I started getting very anxious when I would leave my dorm, not knowing if I would run into the guys that did it on campus. Started to get very overwhelmed easily at things that a lot of people would just find normal. It was a very rough experience. Now, the last thing that happened to me is probably what affected me the most. I spent 6 months in a very emotionally abusive relationship. Now, this is someone that I met on one of the very first few days of being here, and he was charming, he was sweet, and he was kind. He was just everything you ever wanted in a guy. And I told myself, this is too good to be true. But I kind of ignored that doubt, and I dove headfirst into the relationship. Now, the first thing that kind of set everything off is when he claimed I made my first mistake. And he claimed that this gave him horrible anxiety. He claimed that he lost his trust in me, even put him into therapy. And he held this over me for our whole relationship. There wasn't a point in our relationship that he wasn't talking about it. He claimed that the night that I got drugged was a bad night for him. And kind of how I'll sum it up for you is that he took little things from me over the course of our relationship, so small that I really wouldn't even notice, and he tried to turn me into someone who I wasn't. He wanted me to change the way that I dressed. He started to cut me off from my friends, and he started to even cut me off from my family. I went into the relationship as Rachel Nieberg, and I have no idea who the girl is that came out. For the first several weeks after, I spent most of my time in a constant state of anxiety because he had made me so dependent on him that when we broke up, I didn't know what to do next because I basically planned my every move around him. And I'm not gonna lie to you, it's still an uphill battle every day. But I'm lucky to have a very amazing support system here at Tech. And a lot of the resources here at Tech are absolutely amazing. CARE has been one of my favorite resources because they have set me up with a therapist long-term that is very helpful in helping me conquer all of my issues. Voice has also been an amazing resource because they're just there when I need to just get everything off my chest. And one thing that's kept me going is a quote from a song that was released about a month ago by Griffin. If you don't know Griffin, highly recommend listening. And the song is called "The Best Is Yet to Come." The line is, "Our hearts have broken and they've loved, but we're still young, and the best is yet to come." And that's kind of the driving force that keeps me going every day because I can guarantee you it's incredibly hard to keep going. So when NSTP first introduced the I Am Georgia Tech campaign to me, I wanted to kind of use a word that summed up my first year experience. And the word that came to my mind was resilient. Because although I had had every challenge that you could possibly think of thrown my way, and I fell down so many times, and it was hard to get back up, but I got up. So I am resilient. I am Georgia Tech. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Rachel. We'd like to reiterate the awesome mental health resources that Georgia Tech has to offer, such as GT Care, which connects Georgia Tech students with the Counseling Center, as well as many other resources that promote mental health and well-being. There's also a wide variety of other resources that Georgia Tech has to offer that serve student-specific identities and experiences, such as the Veterans Resource Center, LGBTQIA+ Resource Center, Office of Minority Education, Women's Resource Center, and a wide variety of others as well.
And if you are ever feeling alone at Georgia Tech, we highly recommend that you utilize these resources because they can make Tech feel a little bit more like home for you. Next, we will hear from Shane Cooper.
Hey, I'm Shane. I use he, him pronouns, and I am a third-year computer science major from Suwanee, Georgia. When I got accepted into Georgia Tech, it felt like the final piece of my plan was falling into place. Because in high school, I thought I had it all figured out. I was going to work hard, get that 4.0, get into the best school I could to become an engineer and change the world. And it felt like when I got accepted here, I was getting that plan into action and nothing was going to stop me. Now, my first semester here was a summer that came and went smoothly. I had a fantastic time making new friends, adjusting to the new environment, and enjoying the 2 elective courses that I chose to start my college career off with. Afterward, though, things didn't stay so smooth. In the fall, I faced a set of new challenges that, frankly, I didn't expect. Now, I don't mean to say that I didn't expect Georgia Tech to be challenging. That goes without saying. But for whatever reason, perhaps it was the success that I had had in high school, or my own ego, or some combination. But I didn't think it was going to affect me. I thought I was going to take this school by storm and hardly even flinch. That didn't happen. In that fall, I failed my first test ever, and I was devastated. I was getting much lower grades in my classes than I was used to in high school, and it took its toll. I started to have disdain for the classes I was in. I lost my passion for learning. But I carried on. I didn't want to give up on that plan that I had. That fall semester, I ended up getting a 2.8 GPA, and it wasn't fun for me. That was much lower than how I was trying to do here. But I wanted to weather the storm, but my disdain for Georgia Tech grew, and that trend only continued into the spring. I trudged along and begrudgingly went to class with mere inklings of the former passion that I had for being here. Until around mid-semester, I had to admit to myself that I hated what I was doing. I no longer felt that passion that I had before. I felt worthless, I felt depressed, and I felt certain that I didn't belong here. So I reached out to family and friends, and I talked to them about transferring schools because I had myself 100% convinced that I was not cut out to be a yellow jacket. While everyone close to me trusted me to make the best decision for myself, thankfully many of them brought up the idea of changing my major to something I might like a little bit more before deciding to rip off my yellow jacket wings for good. I thought it over, and it at least seemed like a step in the right direction. But that meant giving up on that perfect plan that I'd had since early in high school. Brought up some big questions. What was I going to do instead? What did my future look like for me now? What was I even going to change my major to? Now, I couldn't answer all of those questions, so I resolved to face them one at a time, starting with my major. And thinking about that, I had a difficult time. I didn't want to sell myself short and choose a major that just simply seemed easier to me. At some point, though, I thought back to that first test that I failed in the fall. It was in CS 1301, Introduction to Computing, where after that failed test, I actually committed myself to doing well, and it became the only class that I got an A in that semester. I did some introspection. I thought about why I was inspired to face that class in a semester where I'd lost all other drive for my other classes. It dawned on me that computer science was the obvious choice for me to change my major to. And so I met with my advisor, I attended a meeting, and filled out some paperwork. And the next semester, I was able to officially change my major. Now, if we fast forward to today, here I still am, standing in front of you all today, and actually happy to be here. I don't have it all figured out. I'm not going to say that it's all easy for me now. It's certainly not. My classes are still challenging. I had to take some hits to get here. I had to give up on that plan. But I think that's okay. I value being here and feeling good about it much more than adhering to some plan that I had crafted way long ago. I was a different person then. You may have a plan. Some perfect idea of how college and beyond are going to go for you. And that's fantastic. Having a plan is a wonderful feeling. But what I've learned is that having a plan is only that. A plan, not necessarily a reality. We can do our best to turn those plans into realities, but rest assured that when something needs to change or that plan falls apart, it's not the end, it's a new beginning. It's a new journey, a chance to start fresh. There's a quote that I like from Robin Williams at the end of the movie A Night at the Museum. He's talking to the main character. He says to them, "It's time for your next adventure." And the main character, who's just gone through days, weeks of trials and challenges, says to Robin, "I have no idea what I'm going to do tomorrow." And Robin Williams simply says in reply, "How exciting." I think Mr. Williams would agree with me when I say that it is a gift to be able to start fresh. And for that gift, I am grateful. I am Georgia Tech. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Shane. Georgia Tech can definitely be a challenging place, but we want every single one of you to know that you deserve to be here.
And we hope, like Shane, that you can find your passion here at Georgia Tech and grow into the person you are meant to be. Grades are important, but so is taking the time to grow into the person you're meant to be and do the things that you enjoy. Next, we'll hear from Melissa Molina.
Hey, everybody. Like Kirby said, my name is Melissa Molina. I am a third-year pre-med neuroscience student, and I'm from Suwanee, Georgia, and my pronouns are she, her. Now, I don't know about you all, but I was so excited to get started at Tech. I spent the summer before my first year making Pinterest boards, all of which were color-coordinated to fit the dorm decor of my roommate, of course, and obsessively checking the class of 2023 Facebook page. Now, I was so excited, but unfortunately, about a week before my move-in date, I was diagnosed with a severe autoimmune disease. I had struggled with my health in high school, so having to take this burden with me to college was extremely disappointing. I actually had only had about 8 months of remission before this diagnosis. But when I got to campus, I dove in head first. I joined as many clubs as I could. I went through recruitment. I loved every single one of my classes, and I even got a research position. I thought that if I kept my schedule busy enough, I'd be able to ignore how sick I was, and everyone else would be able to ignore it as well. As we can guess, that plan didn't exactly work out for me, was not my smartest one, but alas, hindsight's 20/20. And so after about 3 unexpected ER trips in a month, one of which involved 3 fire engines on West Campus. That was loud. Fire engines on West Campus, which was extremely embarrassing. My doctors made the decision that I had to withdraw. I had to withdraw from school, go home, move back into my childhood bedroom, and undergo treatment full-time outpatient. I was devastated. I had worked so hard to get into Tech. It was my dream school. I had this beautiful plan of what I thought my college experience would look like, and I had it ripped away from me in a moment. That was a really hard week for me. I was so petrified at the thought of my friends moving on without me, my peers advancing academically, and that I would just be left behind, sick and alone. Thankfully, that couldn't be farther from the truth of the situation. My friends were just such a godsend. They were the most amazing people in the world. They spent countless hours on FaceTime with me, like after classes, in between classes, while I was at treatment. They really just made it their priority to know that I was still loved. The dean's office really walked me through every step of exiting and re-entering the institute. And again, they made it their mission for me to know that even though I was leaving Tech's campus, I was still a part of the community and I was not alone. And that truly changed my entire outlook. I'm so grateful for the kindness that they showed me. So I did just that. I went home. It was very boring for a solid 3 months, and I worked really, really hard, and I got better. And in the spring, I was able to return to campus and take part-time classes. I continued to work to get better, and I was able to return to the campus I love, do everything I wanted to do, like be here, being a FASET leader with you all. Now, there was a lot of resources that Tech offered me that made this possible. Honestly, I couldn't have done it alone. The disability office helped me make a plan that fit around all my doctor's appointments, which there were several, usually 4 or 5 a week. And they helped me make a plan with all of my professors so that I could be successful. And my professors were so understanding. I even had one professor, when she saw me again, she gave me the biggest hug. She was crying, I was crying. It was a mess in the psychology building, it was a time. But I'm honestly so grateful for her. Yeah, so that's kind of a bit of my story. And now you're probably thinking, okay, honey, that's nice, but yeah, what does that have to do with me? So I hope all of you stay perfectly healthy throughout your college experience. But the truth is, Something's gonna happen that you don't know how to handle. That wasn't a part of your plan, that you weren't prepared for. That's just a fact of life. But in those moments of uncertainty is where we really grow as people. What's important is that you have a network around you to help guide you in the right direction when you don't know where to go. That is what the tech community has been for me, and what I hope it will be for you. I'm Melissa, I am supported, and I am Georgia Tech. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for sharing your story with us, Melissa. Georgia Tech administration and faculty are so understanding and willing to help, so never feel like you have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders.
There are some really amazing people here at Georgia Tech that want to help you, so don't be afraid to lean into them and ask for help when you need it. Next, we'll hear from Kathleen Devlin.
Hi, y'all. My name is Kathleen Devlin. I'm a second-year industrial engineering major here at Georgia Tech, and I'm from McLean, Virginia. Coming to Georgia Tech for me was a pretty daunting feat. See, I had sort of grown up my whole life overseas. I was born in Mexico, I lived in Thailand for a few years, ended up in Saudi Arabia for a while, even found myself at a high school in New Jersey, just to inevitably decide to pack my bags and move all the way down south here to Atlanta. And at the time, it seemed like the greatest decision of my entire life. But as the days got closer and more nervous I got, I started to sort of doubt myself and doubt my decision. And when the actual day came, my mom had to sort of drag me by my hands and knees out of my room and stuff me in the car because I really did not want to go. And as we're driving down I-85 and we're sort of approaching the city, you can see like the Coca-Cola building, you can see all the banks, you can see it all. And it was like, you know, like when you're supposed to like walk in the city, you're like, wow, this is like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Like that was not my reaction at all. It was like wave of terrified washed over my face. I was like, it has all these tall buildings. It's so loud. There's so many people on the street. It was like nothing I sort of wanted in a college experience. And I was like, when my mom dropped me off at Glen Corner, I looked at her and I was like, all right, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take the key, we're gonna put it back in the ignition, we're gonna get in the car, we're gonna go home. Nobody has to know a thing. And sure enough, that's exactly what she did, but she just sort of left me behind, unfortunately, in Glen. And so when the time I was sort of moved in and now I was standing in my room all alone, I didn't really know what to do with myself. And instead of putting myself out there, I sort of isolated myself. I was like, I don't really want to go and meet anybody. I was like, this is not my home, this is not my place, like I don't want to be here. And so for the entire week, I just kind of sat by myself in my room. And even though I was not prepared to meet new people, luckily somebody else was. And on the last day of Welcome Week, which is sort of this thing that Georgia Tech does with all these different events, they'll do like games and activities all week long. Last day of Welcome Week was food truck night. And one of my friends knocked on the door and she was like, hey, like, we're all going to food truck now. Like, would you want to come? And I kind of stood there and I was like, oh my God, yeah, that'd be so good. I'd love to go to food truck. Just give me like 1 second. I gotta throw my outfit on. Give me like 1 quick second. So I like throw myself together and I like get out on the street and I'm all ready to go. And we're about to walk up First Year Hill, and I don't know if y'all have done that yet, but it's a pain. And so as we're walking up, it's like the usual small talk, like, what's your name? What's your major? Where are you from? This hill's kind of steep. Do we have to walk it every day? Like, oh my God. And by the time we get to the top of the hill, we've sort of run out of things to say to each other. And so in a situation like this, I really hate silence. I get very, very uncomfortable. I start to sort of, I have 2 mechanisms that I resort to. The first one is I just start telling embarrassing stories about myself, this probably being one of them. And then the second thing that I do is I start to sort of interrogate people. I rattle off questions one by one. I'm like, oh, like all these things. And my favorite interrogation question is, what is your favorite ice cream flavor? And I do this because everybody loves ice cream, and if you don't love ice cream, it's usually a controversial opinion, so it's like gets the conversation going, overall goal, no silence, so it meets every requirement. And I asked this question to the group, and I'm like, oh, like, what's your favorite ice cream flavor? And about 30 minutes later, we've gotten our food from the food trucks, we're sitting down, we're eating, and we're still having this discussion over what's better. Is it Jenny's Ice Cream, which I had never heard of before. It's a little local ice cream place here in Atlanta. It doesn't really extend up much north, so I didn't really know what it was. Or Ben & Jerry's. And I'm very much team Ben & Jerry's because I had no idea what Jenny's was. But there was one girl on the Jenny's team, and she was just like so adamant. It was the best ice cream she'd ever had, and she convinced just about everybody. And she looks at me and she was like, what about you, Kathleen? Like, why can't I convince you? And I was like, well, I've never really been to Jenny's before. And everyone, why? You never been to Jenny's before? Like, oh my, even the Ben & Jerry's people were like, are you kidding? You never been to Jenny's before? And I was like, I did something, which was kind of a risk. I hadn't done it all week. I put myself out there and I was like, well, would y'all want to go? And everyone was kind of like, sure, like sounds like a good idea. It was not a good idea. It's about an hour and a half into the city by walk, which is what we were doing. And it was in the middle of August, which is, I don't know if any of y'all have been here in the middle of August. If you haven't, you will learn to love it. It's very, very hot. So I have like sweat lines running down my back. In my outfit throw together, I sort of put on my shower shoes instead of regular shoes. And there's a time and place for those, and it's not the middle of Atlanta. And so I'm very, very, I'm doing my, but we never met these people before. So I'm keeping the bravest face. I'm like, this is so great. Like, we should walk to Jenny's every weekend. This is so much fun. And by the time we get to the top, we sort of like, it feels like you've like reached Mount Everest. It's like very much uphill. And you plant the flag, you're like, we made it. And like right there is this like huge victorious sign that like it was like, Jenny's, COVID hours closed. At this point, I'm on the verge of tears. I've taken an emotional lap. I'm sort of walking around, and this one girl that I'm with, she's starting to stand there, and she's like chuckling. She's like, ha, ha, ha. And I look over with this like evil stare. I'm like, what could possibly be so funny? Like, how are you laughing right now? And she's like, don't you feel like these things just sort of happen to you? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, I remember like my senior year, like, everyone told me not to bring a tent on like the camping trip, and then it ended up like raining. It was like the one night it rained all night long. And I was like, that's kind of unfortunate for you. And then I was like, what I think about it though, and the more I thought about it, I was like, this reminds me of a time my family and I went boating, and we thought it would be fun to like dress up nicely, and then we got caught in low tide, had to get out in the water in all of our fancy clothes and sort of like push ourselves out from the ground. And next thing I know, I'm learning about Olivia's, One Direction fan account that got exposed in the 7th grade, and the time that like Sonica went on a trip to Mexico, was riding a horse, almost fell off a mountain, and the 1.5 hour walk back to Jenny's really only felt like 15 minutes. And I sort of got to the base of Glen, that was where I was living, and I had a moment, and I was like, wow, like for the first time in a very long time, this feels like the right place for me. And I think back to this time and who I was and how little faith that I had in myself to sort of be this, like funny, nice, friendly person that I know I could be. And so sometimes I have to remind myself of that. So I'll stand here today to remind you of who I am and to encourage you all to remind yourselves of who you are. I am Kathleen Devlin, I am friendly, and I am Georgia Tech. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Kathleen. Whether you're coming to Georgia Tech all by yourself or you're coming with plenty of friends from high school, you never know what unexpected friendships you might gain by putting yourself out there. So go on that adventurous walk to an ice cream shop, go to that Week of Welcome event, or maybe even ask the person beside you what their favorite ice cream flavor is.
Now, before we wrap up, we'd like for one big round of applause for all of our speakers tonight. Alrighty. Thank you all for joining us tonight. On behalf of the New Student in Transition Programs Office, we wish you all the best of luck with your first semester here at Tech, and we can't wait to see all that you accomplish.
And we hope to see you at the other Week of Welcome events, which will happen in August. Those include Convocation, Silent Disco, Evening Social, and plenty of other fun events throughout the week.
We are going to have all of our speakers from tonight stay near the front of the auditorium, and we invite any of you to come up and meet these amazing people and ask them any questions that you may have. In the lobby, we'll be handing out FASET t-shirts, welcome bags, and I Am Georgia Tech buttons so you can fill out your own little statement. There will also be a banner for the I Am Georgia Tech campaign. If you're joining us virtually, you can pick all of these things up in the fall, but thank you all for coming again, and we hope you have a great night.
Thank you all.